Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Amsterdam Talk Season 4, Episode 11. Episode 11. I get brain freeze every week. Episode 11. Tonight, we're in the midst of Black History Month. I suppose I did this show last month, but it kind of got pushed into this month, which is still, part of our brothers and sisters. So tonight we're learning a lot about Haitian culture tonight. And so before I bring in my guests, I like to introduce y'all to Laja Speaks. How you doing, brother?
Yo, peace, man. I'm doing well. If y'all are doing well, if the people listening are doing well, I'm good when the community's good.
Okay. First, this is how we got Elijah on the show. I was actually, coming from dropping some off of school, and I was listening to Sway in the morning. He was on Sway in the morning. He was talking about, the Haitian Revolution. So I was like, wow, this needs to be taught to our people, as far as HBCU culture, which also he is partner. I'll let him tell you that what he's doing with Texas Southern. Before we start, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, peace, man. So, my name is Lajas. That's actually my last name. So, interestingly, I wasn't named at birth. Um, I was raised by my grandmother, who's from the island of Haiti, where you have Dominican Republic and Haiti. And she gave me the name Jonathan Lajas. Probably when I was about 2 months old. There's a whole nother history that goes to that. But growing up, everybody just called me Lajas, man. So I was born in Washington Heights, New York City. Lived in New York City, and in the downstate area, Rockland County, till I was about 11. Moved upstate to Albany, New York, as my grandmother tried to get me and my siblings, kind of away from some family drama, if you will. So I really say that I'm from New York City, but raised in Albany in upstate New York. I personally identify with the Haitian flag, even though my grandmother, my family identifies as Dominican. And that's part of the conversation we're gonna get into tonight, as it relates to Black history and the Haitian Revolution and that history. And so I identify as African, as Haitian, as Spanish speaking and English speaking, person. And I, go into this whole talk through a lot of my spoken word and my poetry about my identity and how I came to be in that. But I'm Lajas, man. I've been teaching for over 15 years. Second grade for 8 years, middle school for a few years, social studies. I'm also an entertainer. So I've done a lot of performing arts, as I mentioned, a little bit of spoken word, actually a lot of bit of spoken word, tap dancing, Afro-Caribbean percussion with the djembes and congas. And so a lot of what I do is in the world of education and entertainment. And like Brother Ross said, so, I'm a citizen of Sway in the morning. All right. And I called in to Sway one morning on Frequency Friday. And, I think the way that we got connected was the way that I call in is I say Dímelo Familia, and then Sway and Tracy G, Heather B, Lonnie, they all respond with Que lo que. And Que lo que is like the Dominican, way of saying like, yo, what up, right? Like Que lo que, what's up? And from there they was asking me like where that's from. And then I had mentioned like, happy belated Haitian Independence Day to Tracy G, who's also Haitian, right?
Mhm.
And we kind of got into a little bit of that history. So thank you again for having me on. I'm honored, I'm humbled, I'm blessed to be here. And looking forward to the rest of this to this conversation.
All right, before we start, I actually caught you said you're a teacher, so before we start, I actually was looking at your IG and you switched the term OG up. And I like that. I like that. And I was like the kid. So how did you come up with that? For those who don't know, he didn't take the term OG as original gangster. He turned to original griot.
Yes.
So how did you come up with that?
Word. So actually, there's a professor at a Temple University, Baba Molefi Kete Asante, or Dr. Molefi Kete Asante. We say Baba. Baba is Swahili for like father or elder.
Hmm.
Uh, but he actually wrote a history book. So as a social studies teacher that was focusing on teaching U.S. history, I had to find ways to make sure that I was teaching U.S. history from a Black and brown perspective,
Hmm.
to incorporate African history and indigenous history. My mentor, from back home in New York, his name is Muata. He showed me this textbook that I kind of indefinitely borrowed from him, right? So I took it
Okay.
from. And it was Dr. Molefi Kete Asante's textbook on U.S. history, but written from an African American experiences and perspectives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Telling us U.S. history, but incorporating all of those stories that we were in need of. One of the sections in there talks about Araucans, which is a term that refers to those elders in African and indigenous communities that
Mm-hmm.
held the history alive by telling stories. And
Right.
another word for an Araucan is a griot or a griot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which interestingly, also there used to be this show on a radio station that I used to listen to back home, and it was actually called The Griot. And they used to tell stories, and keeping legacies and stories alive. So, I kind of took that and I said, okay, if a griot is a storyteller, right? Our original griots are our elders who keep our stories alive, who keep our history alive by telling us these stories. And
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted to I'm always looking for ways to relate to terms and words that the youth are using, that the kids are using,
Mm-hmm.
and flip it on them so that they remember it in a different context, in a different way. So I used to tell them like, yo, I want y'all to really listen to y'all OGs. In the hood, you do listen to the OGs, right?
Right.
uh, but the OG, original gangster. But even if you really think about it, when we in the hood, the OGs is always trying to drop some kind of history on us or some gems on us. They always trying to tell us something. Hey, young brother, back in my day, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you think about it like that, they are trying to be griots. They, you know what I mean? It just might not be from the same point of reference. But yeah, so that's where I got griot from.
Okay. The Griot show wasn't at Morgan State University, was it?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I just remember I used to hear a show that back home they used to I don't know what it's called in radio terminology, but it was a show that wasn't from our
Was it
broadcast.
about? Was it a woman?
I was a couple different people that was on there, so
Okay, all right.
I'm not
Because I was
sure.
about to say, if it was from 88.9 Morgan State University, my dad used to produce that show. So a lot of those stories from Murray Clark, I knew about that.
Yeah. It might have been. I used to I heard it once or twice over the airwaves, and then connected it to the textbook, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, bet. So I know what a griot is. It's a storyteller. And then I just said, all right, we got to listen to our real OGs, Dr. Asante, Dr. Kaba, who used to go by Dr. Booker T. Coleman, right? We got
Mhm.
to listen to some of our storytellers that keep our history alive by telling us these stories, right? And
Right.
that's what I used to tell the students. So yeah.
I got you. That was definitely interesting. There, when I was listening, I said, "Wow, this is definitely interesting." But it means the same thing when you think about it. Like you just put it, like you just broke it down to us. It means the exact same thing.
Right.
Like
Right.
just not forgetting our history. Okay, so we brought you here to talk about the Haitian culture, which is a vibrant blend of African, French, and Taino influences. So
Right.
early in the conversations, you said you represent the flag of Haiti, but your grandmother chose
Right.
Dominican. Why is that?
Yeah, so my grandmother comes from the Dominican Republic, right?
Okay.
And growing up, I just thought I was a Spanish kid. I thought I was a Dominican kid. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It was Dominican. But my grandmother kind of always had like hints about things that I really didn't understand. A lot of my family maybe doesn't even understand. So, um,
Hmm.
if you look on her dresser, right, we call it
Hmm.
her altar. I mean, we had a copy of the Quran on there, a copy of the King James Bible on there. We had a Buddha on there, right?
Hmm.
Um, she had a little doll that his name was Pepe, and he had like a cigar hanging out his mouth, right? And she would rub oil on his forehead. She had rosary beads, but then she had these herbs and she had all sorts of stuff. And I used to be like, yo, like, why you make us go to Catholic church every Sunday, but like you got a whole bunch of stuff here on your altar that I don't know that this is like in alignment with the Catholic Church. And she
Right.
used to try to explain to me that, like, you know, back home in DR, they practice a spiritual practice called Santeria, which
Hmm.
essentially is voodoo, right? Or what's called voodoo.
Right.
And she always had a Haitian flag also and a Dominican flag together. And I just thought it was because Haiti and DR are on the same island,
Right.
right? So now she never really emphasized like, yo, you gotta rep the Haitian flag, right?
Hmm.
We was Dominicans as far as we knew, my siblings and I, my family and I, right? And my older brother is as chocolate as you. My youngest sister is probably darker than you. And then some of my family is way lighter and whiter than I am. So we were always like a rainbow people too. So we just kind of identified as Dominican, right?
Right.
From New York. We from Washington Heights. That's where all the Dominicans is at in New York
Right.
City, right? So we Dominicans. But then as I started studying history
Mm-hmm.
and I came into an understanding of how the Haitians played a role in liberating that island and freeing that island from enslavement, from oppression, from the Spanish and the French colonial rule,
Mm-hmm.
I started to say, oh,
Mm-hmm.
wow, hold up. Dominican Republic, in terms of its independence, never actually claimed independence from Spain, their European colonial masters. What happened was
Mm-hmm.
Haiti defeated the French, then Haiti drove the Spanish out to free all the Spanish speaking Africans, right? So they freed the whole island.
Mm-hmm.
But because there were so many differences between the French side and the Spanish side, right, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
how the slavery was oversaw on both sides of the island, the languages, the religion, and the spirituality. Those Africans on the Spanish speaking side of the island, the Dominican Republic side, after about 20 or so years, they ended up separating themselves from the Haitian side and returned back to the Spanish crown. So when Dominican Republic claimed
Okay.
independence, they claimed independence from Haiti, not from Spain. And so that's
Right.
why I say, like, I identify with the Haitian flag because to me, it represents a complete and total separation from European colonial rule and from
Mm-hmm.
enslavement of black and brown people, you know? And as it relates to my grandmother, going back to your initial question, my grandmother's my grandmother's uncle, so that's my great great uncle. There used to be a president in the Dominican Republic. His name was Rafael Trujillo, and this dude was wicked, like anti-Haitian.
Mm-hmm.
He used to lead attacks against the Haitians. He
Mm-hmm.
really created a sentiment in the Dominican Republic that was very anti-black, and he tried to really whiteify
Right.
the Dominican side. My grandmother's uncle, so my great great uncle, was part of a plot to assassinate that
Mm-hmm.
president.
Okay.
So I also learned like my grandmother kind of comes from a family that low key was very revolutionary, even in the DR, and was really against those anti Haitian policies, which then made sense to me why she always would rep or rock the Haitian flag and had a relationship with Vodou and Santeria and these spiritual practices that are really African, that she got from that Haitian side of the island, right, and the Haitian side of her family
Right.
because her was also half Haitian, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, man. So I know I went down the block and around the corner to tell that answer, but
That's
that's
cool.
how it be.
Got you. So I guess we should go into like John Jacques Dessalines.
For
Why
sure.
is he so globally significant?
Ah man. So Jean-Jacques Dessalines took over after Toussaint Louverture was um was captured and imprisoned. And I would like to reference first let me say I am no master teacher as it relates to Haitian history, the Haitian Revolution. Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Neely Fuller used to always start all conversations and all his phone calls by saying, when somebody asked him how he doing, he would always say, "I'm still learning." And so I'm still learning always.
Right.
But there are a few resources that I like to reference before I answer your question about Jean-Jacques Dessalines. One is there's a documentary called 1804, The Hidden History of Haiti, right? And I think that was
Okay.
other named Tariq Nasheed that put that together. Um,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, yeah, yeah. And then also Dr. Henry Louis Gates has a great documentary called Black in Latin America. And it's a four-part documentary series where he really just kind of is showing the African ancestry in all of these Latin American countries. But the first one is called Haiti and DR, an Island Divided. And those two documentaries
Mm-hmm.
are really, really good, right? and they both go in depth in answering your question about Jean-Jacques Dessalines, right? Why is he
Mm-hmm.
so revered, renowned globally? And it's because of what he stood for. It's because of what the Haitian flag stands for. When you look at the blue and the red, right? Jean-Jacques
Mm-hmm.
Dessalines authored the Haitian Declaration of Independence. And
Right.
in the Declaration of Independence, he's essentially saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, but independence or death. We will never be enslaved again,
Right.
right? And that was part
Right.
of the attitude and the spirit that many Haitians adopt and live by. We will never be enslaved again, right? We are always going to be fighting for independence, and if not, we're prepared to die for it, right? There
Right.
are
Right.
countless numbers of stories that reference the fact that many African people, not just in in Haiti, but coming from the continent of Africa, on the seas, coming to the Americas, who committed to either fighting for independence or dying. They would commit suicide. They would commit infanticide because they said independence or death, right?
Yes. Right.
Um, that attitude, that same attitude that Jean-Jacques Dessalines, put um, into the Declaration of Independence, is the same attitude
Mm-hmm.
that we hear Killmonger speak with at the end of that Black Panther movie, when he
Right.
says, "Bury me in the ocean with my ancestors," because they understand
Right.
that death was better than bondage, right? And that line resonated
Right.
with so many people. I remember when the movie
Mm-hmm.
first came, everybody was dropping that line on the media. Um,
Right.
because that's an attitude that we know existed, but that we are not very much, we're not taught of as much. We're always taught of,
Mm-hmm.
the enslavement or slavery, if you will.
Right.
But the part that's missing is the part of resistance and the fight back. And Jean-Jacques Dessalines embodied that spirit. He said Toussaint Louverture was captured and was thrown in a dungeon in France, left there to rot and die, right? Because he was trying
Mm-hmm.
to renegotiate with the French. Jean-Jacques Dessalines took over essentially and said, what we doing now is we're going to drive these Europeans and these enslavers out of here, get them off this island, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to make sure that we're always remembered for independence or death.
Correct. I don't know. I done lost the camera.
Yeah.
So, when you speak of it, it's like most people talk down on that side of the island. It's like it's basically Dominica, and the other side is just not as beautiful as the other side. Why do people speak so bad on that side?
Yeah. You still there? So I'm gonna.
Nah, he dropped. Okay. Wait a minute. He might be back. Hold on.
Okay.
Rod, you there? Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right, cool. So I'm a restate the question. So in terms of the language, why are people speaking more negatively about the Haitian side of the island as opposed to the Dominican side of the island, right? And so um I'll go ahead and I'll answer that question right when I see Rob back on the screen. um but and shout out to everybody that's listening right now and everybody that's tuning in right now to the podcast. I know I saw somebody in the chat that referenced that documentary, who said like it was definitely a great series, and it really was. It really is. I always encourage my students to watch it, and just anybody, family, everybody to watch it. um so the question was, why is the narrative more negative as it relates to Haiti as opposed to the Dominican Republic, right? And I always say that, what feeds your mind leads your mind. And oftentimes what we're being fed in terms of imagery, in terms of history, is always going to place the history and the culture of Europe above, right, the history and the culture of non-Europeans, especially Africans, and then especially of Africans who resisted enslavement, right?
Right.
So the narrative is negative because of the history of racism, white supremacy, and how it relates to the way that we're educated, and as it relates to the way that media and stories and imagery are promoted about certain topics, right?
Mhm.
And again, Haiti was the first, I'm gonna say it one more time because I gotta say it 3 times. The first successful revolution of a black people, an African people, to defeat a European colonial power and establishing the first independent nation in the Americas, right? So there were always resistance movements in pockets. We were always resisting. Africans have never, ever gone into enslavement willingly. They always fought back, right? There was always resistance. And even though there were resistance movements here and there throughout the Caribbean islands, throughout Central and South America, in North America, on board of the ships coming across the ocean, and in Africa, none of those resistance movements led to the establishment of an independent nation. So
Right.
we have to consider that as being one of the driving forces as to why those who would dominate the narratives, those who would dominate the textbooks and the history books and the way media is populated, wanted to ensure that Haiti was never spoken of in the way that it should have been, with the with it being positive or whatever, because what was positive for free Africans was meant negativity in essence for Europeans that were in power, right?
Right.
And those Haitians, right, um inspired and then supported so many other nations, right, to claim their freedom, right? And that's why the narrative has always been like that. And then of course, like I had mentioned earlier in talking about my family, like that president Rafael Trujillo, he made it his business to promote Dominican Republic and to brainwash the psyche of the Dominican national identity, so that it was anti-African, and so that they would identify with anything that was closer to whiteness, right? And that aided the whole narrative about Dominican Republic being this as opposed to Haiti being that. And Dominican Republic gets all the beautiful beaches and the a tourist attraction, while IT is like, people are essentially just just feel like Haiti poor and underdeveloped, right? And even if it is underdeveloped, that's by design, right? The same way that many of my students, when I ask them, what do you know about Africa? The first thing that they'll say is, oh, Africa is poor, right? Or Africa is underdeveloped. And I would tell them, okay, if you found all the treasure in the world, would you tell where it was, right? And you found these stories. So when Europe discovered that Africa actually not and was the richest continent on the planet, right? It would do them a disservice to tell everybody that. They have to make sure that they capitalize on what they want to use the land for. And so that's the same reason as to why Haiti is spoken of the way it is. But we're rewriting that narrative, right? We're conversations like this and documentaries like the ones I referenced are rewriting the narrative so that we can tell the world about Haiti's beautiful resistance movements and how those inspired and motivated other nations to claim independence as well. Can y'all still hear me? We good? I'm looking in the chat right now. Yep. All right, cool.
All right, I guess we just having some Rod having some technical difficulties. He gonna get it together. We've been here before, so
No doubt, no doubt. I just want to shout out that we have Sister Ava is in the comments. Sister Wanda is in the comments, and big shout out to y'all in the comments right now. And yeah, Sister Ava made a good comment in there. She said, you know, free blacks used to leave the U.S. to live in Haiti.
Right.
And there was a big movement of Africans emigrating from the U.S. to the Caribbean islands. In fact, when you look at the way that the 13 colonies were established, right? Georgia being the last of those colonies to be established. Right below Georgia, we have the state of Florida, right? But many Africans actually, you know, we always hear about Africans escaping to the north, right? Taking those pathways up to the north to go to freedom. A lot of Africans actually went south to Florida because Florida was still being controlled by Spain, right? And the Spanish weren't really as present there as the English and the French were in other parts of the land. So many Africans would actually go down to Florida, and then from there get over to Haiti. So they would go down to Florida, and then from there they would head over to Haiti once they knew, like, oh yeah, we good over here, right? We protected here in the Caribbean. So big shout out to you for that comment.
Yeah, I'm having all types of technical difficulties over here right now. But one thing I can say, if I ever need a host, I know who to call.
That's for sure. I got you.
That's one thing I can say. So, okay, I know I'm probably getting ready to pronounce this wrong, but what is the significance of Krik Krak in the Haitian culture?
Say that again.
Krik Krak, Krik Krak.
Krik Krak in the
Haitian, it's like storytelling.
Yeah. So similar to what we were talking about before, right? There's a powerful story about how the leaders of the Haitian Revolution, right? Mm-hmm. How they communicated with each other with these stones and these bandanas, right? And how they would come together. Because one thing that we aren't really aware of, that because we're not taught of it, is that when we talk about Haitian people now, Haitians now all are speaking Creole or you know, French or English, right? Mm-hmm. But at the time that we're talking about, in the late 1700s, many of these Haitian people came from different parts of Africa and didn't all speak the same language because they came from different ethnic groups from Africa. So you had people from, you know, what's present day Dahomey and Nigeria and Togo, Benin and Ghana, right? But they come from different ethnic groups. So they were all speaking different languages. And so they had to find ways to communicate with each other, right? And the way that they would communicate with each other was through the spirituality of Vodou, right? Mm-hmm. Vodou is a way of life, similar to what you're referring to as Krik Krak. And I'm not sure the Creole pronunciation. Creole, by the way, is a language that I really want to learn. Okay. Mm-hmm. I took French way back in the day. But I was starting to learn Kiswahili when I was in Tanzania, which is the easiest language to learn. But I said to myself, I have to learn how to speak Creole, right?
Right.
Because I want to be able to be in tune with those stories that you're referencing. Mm-hmm. And reason why is because, right, if we speak the names of the dead, then they never die. And we know that our stories historically have never really been written into history. Now we're rewriting it. We're changing the narrative. But what you're referencing now, the significance of that is to make sure that that story of the Haitian Revolution never dies. That the people like Toussaint, Jean-Jacques, Henri Christophe, right? Boukman's mother from Jamaica, right? That these people are revered, even if those books are being banned in certain you know, states, and if they're being banned anywhere, right? These stories must be continued on. And here's the other thing I'll tell you from straight experience as a teacher, okay? Our children are auditory learners first. If you teach them the history in the form of a story, you're a lot more likely to then retain it. And then if you ask them after you've taught it to them in story form, to then we go read some documents on it or we read about it, it's on a deeper level, right? And that's why music hits so hard for us, right? Because it shoots to it shoots to our spirit a different way. You know what I mean? And some of our best musicians, And now we don't got to get into a topic about hip hop and all that, right? But when you think of like the KRS-Ones and the Nas's of the world, right?
Mhm.
They're powerful in their storytelling through music, so it resonates on a whole different level, on a deeper level. So Crick Crack it is and I gotta get the correct pronunciation. I'm gonna ask my sister Jess actually after this. Um, is important because we must keep our stories alive. We must keep our legacy alive when others want to whitewash or brainwash or just completely wash away our history. That's
Mhm.
how we're going through our stories, through conversations like this.
Okay. So it's about that time. So I know we had an IB Dan, but unfortunately I got all type of technical difficulties going on. So I did want to hear you do some of your spoken word before you leave. Because you said you had a show in New York this weekend.
Word. Yeah, so for sure, man. So I would the the piece that I and you can see some of this on Instagram on my IG at Lajas_speaks. Um but my premiere piece always speaks to that history that we were talking about, right?
Right.
And one thing that I learned in my learning is that we oftentimes focus more on where the ships has dropped us off as opposed to where they picked everybody up from. And I
Right.
said earlier in this conversation that I used to identify as like that Spanish kid or that Dominican kid, when
Right.
in reality I may speak Spanish, but that doesn't make me from Spain, just like you may speak English and you may
Mhm.
not England, right?
Yeah, I don't sound like the queen.
Right. These languages are languages that we were forced to speak
Mhm.
hundreds of years ago through colonization, right?
Right.
And so I had to learn, and really I had to unlearn so much. So my piece is called Orgullo Latino.
Right.
Orgullo Latino, which means Latino pride, is something I struggle with deep inside. A struggle I've tried to find that which is me, understanding that my roots run deeper than the Caribbean Sea. Overstanding that Cuba was once called Cawana, Dominican Republic was referred to as Quisqueya or Haiti. I can no longer say I'm just a Latino born in the Washington Heights of NYC. Before I get into my story, I always want to know what is the truth that you really seek. Because whenever I'm with my sisters and brothers, whose highest value may be a college degree, who may have been at one point striving for a bachelor's, master's, or PhD, I always encourage them to take at least one class in Africana studies. Because I understand that my awareness begins with history. Yet history has left me in misery, wondering where it is that my people be. So I took a journey. I got with my elders. They sat me down at their table. They brought me back into time, and it was there at the cradle that I found my true roots and felt a little more stable. See, if you don't know where you're from, then you don't know where you're going. You keep on keeping on, and they'll keep on showing you just black and white. Political fights, the days of the slave trade or the civil rights. And I tried with all of my might, but in no classroom could I find my Latino pride. That lack of education is what forced me to look deep inside, trying to find a part of me that allowed me to identify because I'm not black enough to be black or white enough to be white. So I took a deep sigh when I realized that to call myself Hispanic or Latino in itself is a lie. I say it's a lie because if the term Hispanic wasn't given to us until 1976, then what were my people called before 1975? So that's why I say we got to take it back to when we was called Carib or Arawak. And in honor of my ancestors, my great abuelitas and great abuelitos, I say, don't call me Hispanic. Don't even call me Latino because I'm an African first. And if not that, I'm Taino. But people be like, how he be talking this African when his skin's so light. But we don't identify with color. We identify with culture and consciousness. And when you do that, then you know for sure what's right. So I tell my people, I hope they listen to this, a public service announcement that shouldn't be missed. Cubans, Puerto Ricans, but most of all my Dominicans are in complete denial of how black they really is. And yet, most of them won't listen to me. Writing my book, they probably won't completely agree, but I always leave them with a quote that I heard from Dr. Sister Marimba Ani, which was actually authored by the first president of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He and his words is what set my mind free when he said, I'm an African, not because I was born in Africa, but because Africa was born in me. Peace.
I like that. I love that. So where will you be performing at for people that's watching? We got some viewers in New York. So where will you be performing at this weekend?
Yeah, word, man. So, my brother, man, this brother named Rashawn, man, he's just, I'm so humbled and honored to say that this is a good brother, good friend, man. We met back in Albany years ago, and I hadn't actually been performing like that last few years. Um, he launched a poetry platform in New York called Poetry Me, Please. So it's Poetry Me, comma, and then please. And he's going to be launching the first poetry event of the new year of 2024. Is called Brunch Me Please, which is going to be in New York City, in Manhattan this Sunday. Doors open at 2. I want to say the show starts at 3. So brother Rashawn, or aka Rush the Mic, um Poetry Me Please is the platform. That's the name of the team. PMP, Poetry Me Please. And the event is called Brunch Me Please. And that's going to be in New York City this Sunday. Doors open at 2. Show starts at 3. So if you look at my IG, I'm going to post the flyer again. But it's on there. You can check it out at Poetry Me Please. They got the flyer and all the details and information up. So that's where I'll be on Sunday performing, this Sunday.
Okay, so when does the partnership with Texas Southern start?
Word. So we working now. I'm working with them on doing community related events right now. And we're just establishing that relationship because ultimately what I'm going to be doing is getting on the air to be one of their radio personalities. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm working on with Texas Southern University. It's KTSU is the name of the radio station. And I will definitely update you and keep you informed as to the progress that I'm making with them and doing that. But I'm excited, man. I'm definitely, excited. I've been told, that I have a gift in terms of communicating and using my voice through education and entertainment. And so I look forward to what this year brings in terms of getting on more podcasts and doing this more with you guys and getting on the radio even to, really bring that conversation to the people. So thank you so much again for having me on. I can't thank you enough.
Oh no, we're just getting started because once I leave here, I'm going to link you in an email with my Grammy nominated friend who does spoken word, and y'all can hash everything out because she has a bunch of shows where they go on the road. And I believe she has, well, you'll be in New York this week, but I believe she has one next week, Valentine's Day, in Atlanta, but they all over. So, and she goes, so I'm going to put y'all two together and y'all can go make it happen.
Word. No, I appreciate that, man. And that's what it's about, man. Just building community. So I appreciate that for sure.
Always, brother. But again, if y'all want to reach him, you can reach him on his IG. And you can go see him on Sunday. And definitely we're going to have, once the radio get up, we got people that went to Texas Southern, through the network. Definitely have them listen to you. We can always put it out. I mean, you send me anything, I'll put it up, with this network, and we can go. Be quiet, Ave. I told you I had poetry people coming. No. This is the backstory real quick. I kept promising a Def Jam poetry show for about 2 years because we've been on the air for 3 years now. Never could get anybody. So for the last couple of weeks, everybody's coming who speaks spoken word and poetry. So it's like I got to get all you guys in the room together and let you guys just vibe and jam off each other and just spit you poetry. So I'm just putting all of y'all together now. So hopefully I can see one of you guys win the Grammy. Well, you can become the next Grammy nominated person.
Yeah. Nah, one of my goals for this year is definitely to start to publish my show, publish some poetry, man, and get my book outline at least published. And my book will be titled The Miseducation of the Latino. And so, yeah, man, I appreciate all the connects and all the love that y'all are sharing in the chat for sure.
Man, hey, that's what we here for, man. One make it, we all make it.
For sure.
But
when I make it, y'all coming up because this is my first podcast interview and experience, man. So I appreciate y'all.
Oh man, thank you. I mean, hey, Ava's the actual showrunner, so that's who it is. Oh, this is her whole thing. I just sit here and just do this. But next week, y'all, same time, same place, 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. We're going into Black Hollywood conspiracies next week.
Ah,
I have
no,
a young lady out of Detroit who studies these conspiracies that's going on in Hollywood, and what she told me, they playing with you right in your face. So if you like this week about Haitian culture, we're going in the world of Hollywood that started, as she tells me, which I know is true, that started in New Jersey, that moved over to LA. So we're going to get into those conspiracy next week. But anytime you want to come back, brother, you're always welcome.
no doubt, no doubt. And I just want to say again, real quick, what we refer to as Haitian culture or Haitian history is all Caribbean, but that's all African history, right? And what Dr. John Henry Clark refers to as the missing pages of world history. And last quick little Black History Month fact. You had mentioned this before we got live, but in one of the videos, I think the video where I mentioned the OG
Mm-hmm.
is next week, Valentine's Day, February 14th, is actually the birthday of the Honorable Frederick Douglass.
Okay.
Frederick Douglass's birthday is why Dr. Carter G. Woodson chose the second week of February for Negro History Week. Negro coming from negro, negro meaning black, Black History Week. And that's why Black History Month is in February, because February 14th is Frederick Douglass's birthday. Frederick Douglass, in his narrative, says the pathway from slavery to freedom is education. So that's that.
All right. Well, thank you, y'all. Thank you for coming through and speaking to us. So
Sure.
I'll connect you with Queen Sheba, and we'll just go from there. What you say from Maryland? Oh, yeah, Frederick, yeah. No, she just put in there from Maryland. So definitely, we'll see you next week. Same place, same time.
Peace, fam. Peace.